Good afternoon. And today we have a pleasure of interviewing my friend, Dr. Julie Colzet. Good afternoon, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
And Julie is licensed psychologist and behavioral sleep medicine specialist. Her private psychotherapy and behavioral medicine practice specialize in treatment of anxiety, low mood, and sleep disorders. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And Dr. Julie, she treats patients remotely and offer in-person therapy. So if you want to get in touch with Julie, you're going to find her information under the interview. And she worked with the individuals of many ages, and she published a lot of wonderful articles in a lot of respected magazines. And some recommendation and articles we're going to put also next to the interview, so you can get Julie philosophy better. Also, Julie participate in developing digital sleep programs. And she has a passion for mentorship and supervision. So we're gonna ask you some questions, Julie.
Okay.
Most common thing what I see in my practice would be people complain on a bad sleep, or they complain on insomnia. And tell me, what's your personalized approach towards insomnia?
Okay, so I have advanced training in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is a combination of treatments and includes behavioral treatments such as sleep restrictions, stimulus control. Also, it includes cognitive interventions, including restructuring a patient's unhelpful beliefs surrounding sleep, such as they must sleep 8 hours every night or else something very negative will happen. So I also include sleep hygiene, which I do personalize to the needs of the patient. Because let's face it, nobody likes to get a generic list of instructions that include no caffeine, no exercise before bed. People want things to be personalized.
I really like your approach, how you mentioned in your articles about snowflakes. So we all so unique, and our sleep is unique. And on my channel, I interview a lot of people. I interview people who practice sleep medicine and everything related to sleep, and people have a different views. And I want to know your personalized view. One of the questions what I read in a lot of publication recently called two-stage sleep or biphasic sleep. People come to me and they have that idea, just like you mentioned. I have to sleep 8 hours. Please, they're asking me, with your treatment, I want to have 8 hours, no interruption. And they consider that a success. Since your personalized approach and no two snowflakes, I want to know your view on that theory and how you approach the patients who complain on waking up at night and when they cannot sleep from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m.
I think what you're pointing out, and aptly so, and in a very eloquent way, is biphasal sleep patterns, and there is actually research to support that biphasal sleep is a real thing. Anthropological research dating back all the way to the Middle Ages, people in their writings would refer to first and second sleep. It seems like it would get dark, people would go to bed, they'd sleep for about 4 or 5 hours, and it was normal to have periods of wakefulness for periods of the night. So they would relax, as you said, they would maybe, or you insinuated, they would maybe procreate, then they would drift off for the second half of sleep for about 3 or 4 hours. But as electric lighting became more widespread, there was a parallel loss of first and second sleep in people's writing. I think it's important to understand that background because patients are correct that, there's sleep is not a one-size-fits-all. And there's the idea that there's a correct way to sleep. Sleep is supposed to look a certain way. I would say that biphasic sleep is a good example of an alternative sleep pattern that may work for some people. Think of the snowflake.
Yes.
Where if it works for somebody and they're waking up feeling rested and not sleepy during the day, maybe it's a good pattern for that person. So I encourage people not to have a rigid views of sleep.
I love it. I love it. I think it's create, that state of mind. But you're okay being
Mhm.
so different, but you're good. You feel good, and that practice that. My other question would be regarding strategic naps. That's another thing. A lot of sleep physicians, they say never, don't ever nap. What's your view on strategic naps? And a lot of people, they feel after lunch. And I know in a lot of European countries,
Right,
they
right.
include siesta
Siestas.
time.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So tell us how, for somebody who complained that they cannot fall asleep and they're so scared to have a nap, what's your view on that?
Well, the key word here is strategic, and like you said, some physicians or clinicians will say never, and I say never say never.
We like it.
Yeah, so some patients, maybe patients who have a comorbid medical or psychiatric condition, older patients, uh, can benefit from strategic naps, which can be, let's say, maybe around 30 minutes, although that's not a hard, fast rule. And maybe they'll spend a little less time in bed in the evening as a result of taking a nap. So, one important part of the treatment that I incorporate into my CBTI practice, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is the use of a sleep diary. And a sleep diary is somewhat like a sleep prescription. It's used for evaluation purposes, and it's also incorporated throughout the treatment. So when patients are given a sleep prescription, let's say going to bed at midnight and waking up at 7, that's their sleep window. If they're napping for 30 minutes, we'll have them go to bed, target for around 12:30. So we kind of take that time away. Strategic naps are like dieting. So can you afford to snack? Is kind of one of the a nice way to think of naps.
Very nice. I think it's great. Now, it's another very modern topic. A lot of people come to my practice and they wear a lot of wearable devices, Apple
Hmm.
Watches, or a ring. There are several
Hmm.
interesting applications on the phone to monitor
Hmm.
the sleep, or on the mattresses. It's not wearable,
Right.
but also monitor. Tell me,
Hmm.
as a sleep psychologist, what's your view on that? Is it create more anxiety to monitor the sleep, or vice versa? It's bring a lot
Hmm.
of useful information, and people can catch the certain patterns and change certain
Hmm.
ways. Tell
Hmm.
me your view, since you have a lot of experience working that way.
Yes, I haven't had any patients who've come in with the mattress. I think how they refer to those are nearables, not wearables, but they're
Oh, okay.
nearables. Um, so I have mixed emotions, like I do about a lot of things. But when it comes to wearable devices, a lot of these companies tout the benefits of their devices, but they haven't. These companies haven't been involved in ongoing clinical trials or research uh, that supports the efficacy of their product. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is based on self-report data. So that's why when patients come to me, I encourage them not to look at the clock in the middle of the night. These sleep diaries that I referred to earlier are estimations of how many times one was awake, how many times how many minutes one spent outside of the bedroom in the middle of the night. So to answer your question, wearables, if people are bringing them in and they're excited about their wearable or their nearable, I try my best to incorporate that data in the treatment process. I do go by the evidence-based standard, which is more along the lines of self-report data, a protocol, because it's evidence-based, and then looking at the data that comes from these devices after we work with the subjective data. We don't want to turn people away if they're excited about anything, though, and I think that suggests that they want to be involved in their treatment, bringing in devices. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
No, it's a wonderful answer. It supports some people wearing them.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think
And
wearables are they're referred to as consumer wearables or consumer wearables. They're not treatment. They don't take the place of treatment.
no,
And I think they're likely here to stay. It's often difficult to say which devices, models, what have you, will stick around for the long term. And in terms of outcomes, in terms of interest, in terms of data. Um, and I think it remains to be seen how we can incorporate these new technologies
in the
into
life.
treatment.
Yes, in the treatment. And now I want to ask you, a lot of people come to me, they have a bouquet of comorbidities. Most common would be insomnia. Insomnia is not. No, it would be sleep apnea. And
Hmm.
how you tailor your approach for
Hmm.
people who have, those conditions. Like,
Hmm.
I'm always so scared when they come and they talk about compressing their sleep and this way. How
Hmm.
you view, people who have sleep
Hmm.
apnea, and
Hmm.
if they have treatment, and sometimes with the CPAP machine they also have to wake up for whatever
Right,
reason.
right.
How you help
Hmm.
them
Hmm. So
to
the two
get.
most, yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up, specifically in the context of OSA. I know that's
Yes.
what you treat often in your practice, and the two most common sleep disorders or sleep challenges are insomnia, and of course the other being OSA. And sometimes people are surprised to know that yes, they do happen together, and what can be done about it. And unfortunately, if you look at the research, there's uh, historically not as much research into the two together as there are to the two separately. And I think that uh, is not a good thing. So to your point, it sounded like you get a little nervous when patients are restricting their sleep, and maybe they have untreated sleep apnea. Maybe they learned about sleep restriction or sleep compression over the internet. So it all starts with an evaluation, and I do ask questions relative to sleep-related breathing disorders when patients come to the practice. And if a patient has OSA or maybe has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, we have to be very careful about when it comes to sleep restriction. Now, if a patient has OSA and it's managed, and they're reporting that they're adherent and that they don't have any problems with sleep related breathing, then we can look more closely at sleep restriction as a tool. But they do likely occur together. Um, and
Yep. Thank you very much. And
Mhm.
now my last question to you, Julie, and we really
Mhm.
appreciate you have so much knowledge, and I highly advise our patients to learn more about you from the links we're going to give it next to the interview, and get in touch with you, and definitely read your articles. And I like
Thank
how
you.
you do personalized approach about comorbidities and sleep in the article. So I highly encourage that. My last question to you,
Mhm.
please, as a sleep psychologist, can you give us a good tips for good night sleep?
Well, I was thinking about this question because I know you asked it in advance, and my automatic response is forget about it. I think we have been conditioned in modern society to some extent to worry about sleep. Now, sleep is when sleep has become a chronic problem. So we're dealing with chronic insomnia. Treatment is necessary. Now, clinicians like myself, we have to walk a fine line by when it comes to encouraging people to get help for their problem, and also not turning people away and feeding into concerns about sleep. Because if people are lying in bed worrying that they can't sleep, that's an indication
Sleep.
that the problem has become chronic. So by the end of treatment with me, I hope patients think more like a golfer when it comes to sleep, that they just swing, they just sleep, they
I
don't
like it.
they don't think about how they're swinging. So if you ask a good sleeper, how do you sleep? They'll look at you and say, what do you mean? Their sleep drive takes over, and it just happens. So that's a key portion of treatment oftentimes, which is to align sleepability with sleep opportunity. That's where the sleep diary comes in. The sleep prescription. We don't want there to be wasted time in bed spent not sleeping. That's also where stimulus control comes in, where we have patients get out of bed when they can't sleep, so the bed doesn't become associated with anything other than sleep and sex. And sleep hygiene fits in there as well. If, if patients can have a regular sleep schedule, even on weekends, more or less, that's great. So
I like it. I like you put it in a very wise way. And I really like that comparison with a golfer.
oh,
So you don't think about swing.
mm-hmm,
You swing. You just sleep. And it
mm-hmm,
happen light, in a light way. So thank you very much, Julia. We really
yes.
honor and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.